Hello, we're coming to you from the corner of Morris and Queen. My name is Chris Green. I'm the owner of Atlantic News, and we are a newsstand here in Halifax, not a news outlet. And what we're doing is interviewing the 6 candidates for District 7, for the election for council seats. And these are for voters' information and for you to get to know each candidate. Before I introduce our first candidate, I just want to give you information that you might have seen, but helpful information on voting. Online voting starts tomorrow, October 8th, and it goes through October 19th. In-person voting is on October 12th and on October 15th. That's in advance of Election Day, which is on October 19th. The polls are open all throughout HRM from 8 a.m. to 7 p.m. I'll include the links to the City of Halifax that takes you to this information if you need help. So that's the voting bit. So I'd like to introduce you to Miss Laura White. Laura, thank you for coming.
You're welcome, Chris. Good morning.
Good morning. When we do these interviews for authors, we ask them, what is your book about? So we'll start off with, what is your candidacy about?
Interesting way to ask that. Okay. What is my candidacy about?
Just briefly, just as an introduction.
Yeah.
We'll get into the details as we talk.
Right. My candidacy is about offering up myself, I guess, my services, my experience, my knowledge, my work ethic, my energy to serve the people of District 7.
Nice. Well, thank you. None of the questions here are meant as gotchas, and this is a no shade zone, so this isn't a place to hammer the candidate or anybody else. So if my questions come off as such, they're not meant to be. So tell me about yourself. Where are you from, and what has brought you to Halifax?
Sure. I am from Halifax. I was born here. Grace Baby is what the IWK used to be called.
Okay.
Grew up in Dartmouth until I was about 13, with a little brief 2 years actually as a kid. Lived in Norway. My dad transferred there for a bit. My parents.
How's your Norwegian?
Hva heter du?
Okay, good. And that'll be the beginning and the end of it. But sorry.
Excellent, because that's all I know.
Sorry for the interruption.
Yep. So my parents are from Truro, so we moved back to Truro for the end of junior high and high school for myself. And then I went to Mount Allison. Do you know Mount A in Sackville?
Yes,
Okay,
yes.
Went to Mount A for a couple years, and then here for 3 years. Engineering, you split. You do 2 years somewhere, and then you come here. So so I went to Dalhousie for engineering.
What sort of engineering did you study?
Mechanical.
Fantastic.
Yep. And we did a co-op program there. So for work after graduation, I went right back to one of my co-ops in Ontario. So that's where I started my career. But my husband and I are both from Truro and Nova Scotia in general. So we wanted to come home, but definitely wanted to be in Halifax because we had lived in Toronto and really enjoyed an urban lifestyle. So that's why we wanted to settle here. So it feels like home, a bit of a boomerang person, but it's definitely home forever.
Fantastic. And what's your family? You mentioned some children and a husband?
Yes. I have 3 of the first you mentioned, and 1 husband. Yeah. My kids are awesome kids. They are currently.
What are their ages?
Yeah, they're currently 11, 13, and 16 in 3 public schools in the district. So.
Oh, fantastic. Yeah. So I have a son who's an engineer. I'm a political science history student in university, but I have a son who's studying engineering who's telling me all the time that what he's studying is helping in the way he thinks about things. So as an engineer, how is that going to help you sit on the council?
Yeah, I look at it as like a lot of people ask me, are you a civil engineer? Because they think that would be relevant. And it's not really about what discipline it is. It's more the style of thinking. Like they throw a lot of work at you. Like you have more courses than other programs, and you learn how to handle a lot of things coming at you in your degree. But then both through your degree and working, it's a lot of collaborating with other people. It's a lot of questioning, like looking for the right answers, and solutions driven, and just always asking questions to try and understand it better or see what we're missing or what we could do better. So I think it's that kind of attitude that that helps more versus the actual technical details, because counselors shouldn't really be doing the detailed work.
Nice.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. So there are a number of issues that are at the fore in this election, and I've done a little homework looking at the surveys that all of you candidates had to fill out, and the paperwork and the plans that are thrown at you. It's quite amazing. Why don't you pick one of the issues and start with what's the issue that you'd like to talk about first as a candidate, that in terms of why you want to be a counselor and
Mm-hmm.
what you're going to do about it.
Okay. I might start with housing. Just that isn't what motivated me to run, but housing is on people's minds the most. So maybe I'll start with that, and then talk about other things
Certainly,
that drove me.
So where do we start with housing? There's all sorts.
Yeah,
there are many
there's
components
a lot
to it.
there. So I'm just talking to so many people, and I hear it kind of from three angles. One is the concern about homelessness, both deep empathy and concern for people having to live like that, and then also just the fact that all of us are losing a bit of our public spaces, because that's where the only place we have right now for people to live. So it's tough on all sides. So there's that part of it, and then there's just the general affordability of housing, like just for everyone, no matter where you are kind of on the spectrum. It's definitely affecting people's choices and what they do, whether you're renting or owning, or if you want to move. Like some people explain, like they're scared to move because they could never come back, or things like this. And then the other piece was the zoning changes. A lot of people concerned about what that means as we're growing. Yeah.
And the accelerator.
The accelerator fund. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So for those three, and dividing them into three like that helps me.
Okay.
So the first one you mentioned, the homelessness issue.
Mm-hmm.
In looking through the paperwork, I see that there's something that the city has produced called the Managed Encampment Plan, and I'm not going to test you on any of these, but I noticed that it's 59 pages. And so I know people I imagine people that aren't running aren't going to look at 59 pages. Now, as somebody who's running, maybe you have.
I
to
have
look
not.
at it. Yeah,
I have not read that.
Yeah,
no,
that's probably a good thing. But I imagine the Managed Encampment Plan talks about what the city wants to do. But tell me your thoughts on with the homeless issue. What are some of unpack that a little bit? How do we get it? What's going on there, and how do we get at the root of the issue?
Well, I guess my tendency, I just want to learn about things. So I heard about a book on the CBC program, The House, called Our Crumbling Foundation, written by a PEI journalist, I believe.
Which we offered in Atlantic.
There you go. So I haven't read in weeks now, but I got partway through it.
Yeah, you're a little busy.
Yeah.
So what was your takeaway from that book? Did that help frame it for you?
Yeah, for sure. Like I'd heard about the housing first model before, but reading the description that Gregor had in there could really picture it. Like the idea is to provide housing to people no matter what your circumstances. So any mental health or addictions you're facing, or any situation, you're given picture like a basic dorm room, but you've got the lock and key, and the place comes with all the services you need for whatever you're facing. So starting with that, and then going from there, however people can get through those struggles and maybe get to the next level of housing.
Okay.
So
obviously that's not happening here in the city.
Well, it is a little bit, actually.
Okay. So tell me. Yeah.
Well, I think it is. I spoke to a provincial politician, and she was mentioning the bridge and the overlook, that those are trying to follow that model. So I don't know them in detail, but I think we do have it. So we have the startings of that.
Okay, and so the bridge and the overlook, those are two low-income housing facilities where people can have their own place. Is that right?
I don't know the details, but my understanding is that they're trying to implement that housing first model. So taking people that have been on the street and offering them this model. Yeah.
Nice.
So I guess what excites me about that is we know it works. It's actually working in Winnipeg. They're doing it, but more famously in Finland. They've really made a dent in homelessness by executing this model. So.
And would it be basically building facilities where people have their own room or space with a key? That's what we're talking about.
That's my understanding. So having those supply, but then having all those wraparound supports that come. And I know that that's what is generally being tried to happen. I just don't know if we have enough supply or enough of those supports. And clearly we don't have enough units, or people would be in them.
Right. So this housing first model,
Yeah.
from your understanding, this is not a new idea to
No.
the existing council, and it's something that's been discussed
Mhm.
and is working on. Okay.
So I really I just like knowing that works and trying to collaborate with all the levels of government to make it happen, because the city can't do it all by themselves, and the province is not doing it all by themselves right now. So what is needed? Do we need more federal support? What is it? But really, I want to start with just building those relationships and finding out what is needed and what the city can do to help to go towards that.
Right, because it's
Yeah.
complicated, isn't it? You have the federal level, the provincial level, the local level, and from my basic understanding, councillors certainly have power, but it's interacting, as you say, with those other two levels to make sure funding's coming or any regulations, these sorts of things.
I think that's part of it. I don't think any one counselor on their own would do that. It would probably be the mayor that would be going for those asks. But as the counselor, you still be involved in those conversations, kind of whoever's at your level or whoever wants to talk to you.
Right.
Yeah.
So who are, and I don't know if you can address this, I haven't gone and talked to or gotten in the face, dared to get in anybody's way, but who are the homeless people? Are these people that had homes, and when I say the homeless people, when you drive down University and you see these tents or these encampments, are these people that have substance challenges? Are these people that used to have a place and were kicked out? I imagine it's a number of things, but do you have a sense of where are these people coming from that don't have a place to stay?
Sure.
And maybe
I don't have the exact facts, but kind of from what I'm learning and hearing. Well, first of all, a number of years ago, I remember watching a documentary at the Mi'kmaq Native Friendship Center, and on homelessness, and learning that nearly 100% of people that are experiencing homelessness have had trauma in their lives. So start there. But now, so we also have the mental health and addictions and trauma in the background, but now we've also got this affordability crisis. So I think from what I've been hearing is it's kind of like a third, just the affordability, like rent evictions, all that kind of thing. And then 2/3 would be the other kind of mental health and addictions that we've had for years and years issues. That's my understanding. I'm not sure how exactly accurate that is.
And I know that was a very general question. Thank you.
Yeah.
So I'll get to the affordability issue in a second. In terms of encampments, there was a discussion about where to have these encampments, and one idea was to have a spot in Point Pleasant Park. Is that a good idea? A bad idea? What do you think?
I don't think we should go there, and I don't think any of the councillors that decided to put that on the list want to go there either. It's just we are struggling right in the city.
So it's just a matter of where to go.
I am in favor of the managed approach versus not designating and just having people everywhere, because I just feel like we could better service people if we know where they are. I'm not involved in this on the ground, so I don't know if they're aware of every single person and what their needs are and where they are. But Point Pleasant in particular feels, in addition to all the other reasons that it's hard to have people living in parks, it's just a fire risk down there. So
the risk to the people that at the encampments.
Yeah,
and then
exactly.
You mentioned it, and of course we all want people to have their own place, but there are public spaces in the city that are for everybody. And when somebody's living there, you don't want to walk into somebody's house, but that's a public space. So it's a difficult situation for all, isn't it?
Yeah, I think we have to keep our empathy for people that are struggling with a lot. But also, I had a great conversation with a resident who had the concern over Point Pleasant, where if a person is living in there and we don't know where they are and they have a heart attack, it's just so big and wooded, and so it didn't seem like a great spot for the people living there either. So hopefully we can manage it and not have to open that as an encampment.
Yeah, thank you. So affordability. Where is that coming from? Is it as simple as let me lob out a simple opener. Is it just the fact that the price of renting a one bedroom has gotten so expensive that people can't afford that, so that they have to live in a tent? Let's unpack the affordability piece. How is that tying in with people that are homeless? Yeah,
that's the reason it's getting worse. Is because housing is completely unaffordable. I would not be able to afford to live with my 3 kids without my husband's income. Like,
Yeah.
it's
Right.
wild. And like people are spending almost all their income on housing.
Right. And
Uh,
and there were things in the press that it seemed unfairly focused on foreign students coming in taking all the housing. Now, I imagine that is adding to it, but of course that's not going to be the only reason.
Mhm.
Another issue that has popped up is the notion of running an Airbnb for a short-term stay, or if you want, and if a number of people have short-term Airbnbs, that takes away from rental pieces. Are these factors at all?
I'm sure they are. I don't know how much, but I think it's bigger than that. I think
Hmm.
like in this book I'm reading, it feels like it goes back like 40 years of whose responsibility is housing. I believe at one point the feds had more to do with it, and then now it's all provincial.
Hmm.
And for whatever reason, I don't know why there hasn't been as much funding in public housing over these decades. I'm not sure why it's changed, but there just hasn't been the investments. And so, if we're having more people coming into our country, which is wonderful, and I'm meeting so many of them, and it's really sad that they can't vote. We should have permanent residents be able to vote.
Yeah, that would be me.
Yeah, exactly. And many of them are working in healthcare, and we really need those people.
Yes.
Anyways, but if we're planning our immigration and growth, both within, we're getting a lot of people here in Nova Scotia from other provinces. Like, we were discovered over COVID, so we're
Yes.
just getting people from everywhere. But where's the planning going back
Right.
for all levels of government to know what housing needs we would have?
So do you
Yeah.
have a sense, if you're elected on the council, what power will you have to add to this discussion of the affordability piece?
Mm-hmm.
What can councillors do about that?
Yeah. The really detailed specifics, I don't know. But I do know the main power of municipal governance is over land use. So, what land do we have, or what ways can we zone that we can get more nonprofit housing built? Like, whether that's part of existing developments. Like, I always hear about, what's affordable and how many affordable units do these big developments need to put in. But from what I've heard, it's kind of short term. Like, how do we make sure that it's this many units at this price forever, and getting more nonprofits involved?
Yeah, and you just mentioned zoning, and so that goes into the third piece as you broke down housing, and I, as a new person here to the province and to the city, I learned a lot during the debates of the Accelerator Fund, and how the federal government has gotten involved.
Yep.
What is let's start with a quick piece on that. What was the conclusion of the Accelerator Fund? From what I understand, what is your understanding about where that is now? What did the council decide on this? All I heard was they're getting a whole lot of money from the feds if they change, if zoning is changed.
Okay. So yeah, they decided to change a lot of single family zoning. So it's just been zoned for a long time to just have one home, and that's changed. So now it can be between 4 and 8 units depending on the lot size.
Okay.
Yeah. But actually, before this change, we did have the option for a backyard suite. But anyways, now it's between 4 and 8 units depending on lot size.
Okay. And from your understanding, is where that is now, is the accelerator going to help? There were a lot of people that argued that the accelerator fund was not a good idea for Halifax. Where are we with that? And your thoughts? Is this going forward? Is this going to help out? Do we have to be careful? What's it look like?
I think it will help. It's that particular change. There's other changes with building heights that I'm not as familiar with, like what levels. But that piece is, there's a term called missing middle housing or gentle density, like looking for, like, we basically have these single family homes and big towers. We're missing the in-between kind of small townhouses or small buildings with a courtyard. These kind of things, we don't have a lot of this stock. And that can be helpful for families and anyone looking for places. So we're quite spread out. Like, the majority of residents in this district live in tall buildings, and take up less space than the single family homes.
So most of the people in District 7 live in apartments in the high rises as opposed to the homes. Is that what the numbers are? Ish?
I haven't seen it on paper, but I've just been doing it, and
Right,
there's
right.
a whole lot of them.
And you live here, yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
So help me with this. I drive around Halifax and I see skyscrapers, big apartment buildings being built seemingly on every street corner.
Mm-hmm.
Now, are these going to help the homeless situation at all?
No,
are-
no,
no.
I don't think so. I think
It won't filter down because people move into those, opening up others, or is this a whole other issue with development?
well, yeah, I shouldn't say a hard no. Like long term, we do need more supply of market housing, definitely.
People are moving here. That's a good thing. They need a place to live.
Yeah, but what we really need to focus on to solve this affordability is way more basic housing. So we need more public housing. We need more of this housing first model to help people. We need non-profits involved so that it's affordable. Like in the definition of affordable, like I know what people would like it to be defined at is 30% of your income. But
I've heard that one.
It's not. I don't think we're defining it that way. In fact, I learned recently that for the large buildings that are having to put in affordable units, it's based on like whatever the top price is for the units and then some percentage of that. So that doesn't sound affordable, and it also sounds like you might want to have really high prices so that your affordable units are a higher price too. So again, I'm just hearing this. I haven't read this myself. That's my understanding of it. So yeah, but there's a big gap between if that's what is being defined as affordable versus 30% of one's income, right?
So these high rises, separate issue than the homeless. It sounds like one thing I hear a lot from people that have been here, that the development of these high rises is changing the nature of Halifax and what it is as a city, and what makes it unique. Are there challenges with as Halifax grows? What are the challenges as Halifax grows, making sure that we retain the heart and soul of what the city is?
Yeah. Well, I'm in favor of building complete communities and having this gentle density, and yes, talking about some high rises too where appropriate. Because I know that the alternative to that is more urban sprawl and more suburbs just built out further and further and further without public transportation and everyone in their cars. And that's not sustainable. It's not affordable for people either. I think it's not right that we expect people to own a car to get around. That's a big expense. Yeah. And if we can provide a walkable city, a city with great transit, a city with somewhere people can bike and do all the micro-mobility safely, it's so much cheaper too.
Yeah. You're helping lead this discussion. You mentioned the next one's transportation.
Okay.
You mentioned cars and bikes. So with transportation, how do we unpack this one? I know it involves public trans, it involves people driving, it involves parking, it involves bike lanes. How do you start unpacking that as a council person?
Well,
where do we start in talking about dealing with transportation issues here in the city?
Well, we have this integrated mobility plan that is from 2017.
Which is 182 pages.
There you go.
So unpack that for me. Is that does that guide us?
It's an awesome document. It talks like pedestrians are the priority, and then people wheeling and cycling.
Okay.
And rolling, and then transit. I don't know if they have car share in that or not, but in the triangle, usually car share would come next. And then personal vehicles. Okay. So it lays it out the way we want to go, but we're just not seeing it in practicality yet. So we're making baby steps, but it's not there yet.
So from your understanding, what's the next step to push that forward?
Yeah, well.
And again, from your understanding, I know all the candidates, you're not in the space, so of course, but you get in there. What do you think the next step is to push this integrated mobility plan forward?
Yeah. Well, one thing, I want to do something pretty specific. I don't know how that would start or how you'd start those conversations, but I just know that other places are doing this too. We are not the only ones.
Right.
And other places are having to convert their, it's been 80 years sort of since World War II that we've been heavily focused on developing car infrastructure. So undoing that in any way is not easy.
It's a step by step.
Yeah,
yes.
but there's other places that are doing it, and I'd like to look more to them, like really learn from their successes. Both in the utopia of the Netherlands, they have people that there's one thing called the Dutch Cycling Embassy, and they help other places that would like to improve their infrastructure. But then even closer to home, like I would love to go like on a field trip with some staff and counselors to Montreal. Like it's really great there
And learn
from
what
the
they're
pictures I'm seeing,
Yeah.
and they're doing it so much faster, and it's not all big development projects. It's more tactical things that they're doing to be able to make space for walking and cycling. Because I think we do need to go faster. Like this one that we've just recently approved here on Morris Street. It's still going to be another 4 years.
So tell me about that. Morris is going to become one way. Is that right?
Part
Is
of
that
it.
what
Yeah,
you're speaking of?
Morris is. Yes. Sorry,
Yeah.
but it's all the way from Morris and then on University, and then also through some residential areas. There's the whole project.
Okay.
Yeah, but you're right. Morris is.
So give us a summary of that project. What is it, and why is it a good thing? I mean, and it sounds like this is an example of projects that would help going forward.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
So help me. What is the Morris project?
Okay. So
Briefly.
So HRM has a AAA bike network plan that is overdue.
Mhm.
I think it was 2022. It was originally scheduled to be complete, so we're not there.
Okay.
So this is a part of it.
All right.
Yeah, so it's a part of that AAA network.
So providing bike lanes on the street
Well, they
or on the road, whatever.
wherever. I mean, it's best to have separated bike lanes for safety. Yeah.
Right. Okay. And so
Yeah.
these are the sort of initiatives that the city needs to push forward to give people incentive to get on a bike and feel safe about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. We're not building these for people that bike already. We're building them to have a modal shift, to give people a reason to get out of their cars.
Right.
Because right now it's quite convenient to drive, aside from the recent congestion. It's quite cheap not cheap, but incrementally.
Yeah.
Sorry, it is not cheap. Like I said, it is expensive to drive a car, but
Right. But the
you're in
incentives are
that
there.
habit.
Right.
You're in that habit. You've already paid your insurance, blah, blah, blah. Like we want our transit to be inviting. We want our paths, our cycle paths and walking and rolling paths to be inviting, so that they're the better choice, that they're faster, that they're more comfortable, that they're cheaper. Yeah.
Right. From my understanding, the Coburn project.
Coburg. Yep.
The
Yep.
Coburg project. That there was some controversy throughout. It was decided, but it sounds like we could look at that and draw some conclusions and learn about what are our takeaways from that whole piece.
I think the communication piece, because there were consultations done, but my understanding is they were quite a while ago, and I don't know how much residents were informed about. Okay, we're here, we're at the implementation phase. This is coming. Let's talk about it. Not necessarily to change the project, but just to let them know why it's coming and how we got here.
So communication among the
I
different
think so.
stakeholders and make sure everybody understands where we are and where
the
it's
history of how we got to this, because I think a lot of people felt like, what? I didn't know anything about this. Why is this happening?
going. Right.
Yeah.
Right. Now, what about buses? From your understanding, are we headed in the right direction in terms of providing efficient? Are there enough buses? Do they work as well? It seems that with the traffic, the buses are sitting in that traffic.
Exactly. Yeah.
So is there a path forward on that, or do we just have to follow what's happened? What's your understanding of where we are with providing public transportation as an option for people?
My understanding, excuse me, is we have this bus rapid transit plan that council has approved. If you look at it, it looks like a subway map, but it is waiting on funding. So I don't know if staff are continuously applying for funding sources or what's going on there. I'm sure those conversations are happening with the province, and I don't know if the federal and government could be involved as well. So there's that is planned, and we want to execute that. But then while we wait for that, I still think there's things we could do better on our current system.
Can you talk about one of those?
Yeah, one thing is we have these corridor routes, at least 1 to 9. I'm not sure if 10 is considered a corridor route or not, but more frequency on those routes, because like the number 1 bus comes every 15 minutes. It's a pretty good bus, but some of them are 30-minute service. So it's not attractive if you have to really plan and think, when is this bus going to come? And often they don't come when they say they're going to come. So to have a transit system that people are going to use, you don't want to have to think about the schedule. So you really need a much more frequent service. I think when I was in Toronto, it was 9 minutes or less was considered frequent service. We're not going to get there overnight, but could we have more routes on a 15-minute service instead of a 30?
Okay, and that probably comes down to the budget of spending money on the buses and people driving them?
Mm-hmm. And looking at how we're currently doing our routes, and are there certain things that could change or not? Yep.
Okay, from transportation to the... Can you help unpack, why is the regional plan important? I see that it's 353 pages, so hopefully you haven't read... Well, I don't know if you've read through all of that or not, but tell me as a councillor, why is the regional plan, and I understand we're at the 4th phase of this, so this is something that has been going on for a while.
Right.
Why is this important, and where is it going, in your understanding?
Yeah. I had not read it until Matt Stickland forced me to. So it's great. That was a really good exercise. The Coast did.
Nice.
So to learn a bit about the history of it.
Give us some sort of summary or something to hang our hats on. What are the important pieces of it, and how is this going forward? How is this going to affect people in this council, in this district?
I don't feel super qualified to comment on that, but I'll say what I'm thinking is, it's just, how do we want to develop, like talking about these complete communities. We want Bedford to be a place where people want to hang out and work and live and not always have to come down here, right? We want it to be walkable and have entertainment and workplaces, and we want all our communities to be more complete and livable. That's the big part of it to me.
If people in Bedford feel that it's a thriving community, that they can do things there, they don't have to drive into the city.
Right. We're not going to have multiple, wanderers grounds or whatever.
Right.
Right. So there's always going to be things that are a downtown focus. But yeah, I think just to make people's home communities more attractive for that walkability and socializing and recreation. Right. Yeah.
So there's a suburban plan, there's a suburban plan, a rural plan that all tie into the regional plan, from what I understand.
Yeah, I have not read them all yet, Chris. Yeah, I've got ideas of how I like things, like visions. I'm really into public spaces. My husband and I were talking about, what will we talk about today with Chris? And just how, wherever I go, I'm just observing these things and what things I see that work well. And
so tell me about one of these cool ideas that people should know about. You probably told them about it as you knock on the doors. But
I don't know. Well, sure. Just the little things, like when I'm talking about vibrant public spaces, I'm looking at washrooms. For instance, I was in a little protest down there at Grand Parade a few days ago, and there's no bathroom there, and I had to leave.
That's a problem,
right?
Yes.
It's just that's a major public space, and I think there should be more accessibility for public washrooms and water fill stations and maybe in more of our residential neighborhoods, even just more benches spread around, or even a bike lock. I'm locking up to the sticks for signs, which works, but designing more for people to not just be coming in and out of, but kind of existing there. Yeah.
Right.
More shady little parks to sit and things like that. Yeah.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Part of this district is contiguous with the port, right? And the port being a part of big infrastructure plans. Are there, as a council person, do you have a sense of what does the city need in terms of infrastructure? Are there ongoing pieces? I understand the Windsor Street infrastructure is a big one that might be holding up other things. What's your sense of in adding a voice to help with infrastructure? How you might take part in that?
Okay, I guess two things come to mind for this. One is the trucks downtown. This is very disruptive to people living down here. and visiting.
Right.
They're dusty, they're loud. Like when they go over the manhole covers, they're bumping and making a
Right.
racket
And
at all hours of the night.
these are trucks that are transporting the containers from
Yeah.
the port out.
yeah.
And so, am I right on this one that if the Windsor Street infrastructure, if that whole exchange gets finished, then the city can focus on other pieces, such as trying to make sure that the port can do things so that trucks don't have to drop off big containers at the port. Is this the sort of thing?
I'm not sure of the relationship. I know that the Windsor Street Exchange, like moving goods, is a huge part of it.
Right.
But I'm not sure the relationship between the truck traffic,
Okay.
getting the traffic off. I was trying to find out the plan there. Like I know there's some sort of plan to get the truck traffic onto the rail to go between the two ports, like between here and Fairview, I believe. And I don't know why that can't happen now. I don't know what the holdup is, why we have to have the truck traffic on the streets for now, but definitely have lots of questions there because it's disruptive for people living, but it's also just like as our amazing waterfront, like the next road up is just, it's just this dusty, loud road that I really think could be pedestrianized someday. It could be much more beautiful space down there. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then the thought about the Windsor Street Exchange that comes to mind is we really need to make sure that we have good active transportation connections there, because I know that it's been being designed to move goods, but we cannot forget about all these micro-mobility ways of moving around, walking and biking, because there's no way to get from the Bedford Highway onto the peninsula without building something there. So, you know, in other countries, they use bridges and tunnels all the time to get around these things. We rarely see that here.
Right.
That some thought has gone into and some investment has gone into, well, how are we going to move people? Like, I really want to focus more on moving people.
Right.
I know we have to move the goods, but like, let's not stop focus on moving cars and start focus on moving people.
Yeah, and how do they get around the city? I moved here a little over a year ago, and to me it's such an exciting city because people want to move here, and the population is increasing, but of course that creates these issues which we've talked about, which as a councillor you'll have to face, whether it's housing or transportation, and it seems that the city is just like any city would, is playing catch up to these huge numbers that have come to the city. I mean, are these just natural discussions that we're having for a place where people want to move, and so the increased numbers are creating challenges? Is that where we are as a city? You know,
I'm not really understanding the question. Like, I don't know where.
Oh,
like,
yeah, that question was all over the
like,
place. So the question is this city facing issues that other cities are facing in terms of numbers, where we have more people here, the transportation network is not set up for the numbers of people that live here, the housing stock is not set up for the numbers. Is that the issue we're facing, or are we facing there are major problems with how we set up these systems and we have to change them?
Well, the housing crisis is definitely national and beyond, so that's not unique to us.
Yeah.
And the car culture, you know, always developing that way has been, like I said, since the Second World War. This is how we chose to develop for various reasons. So, yeah, we made our choices, and now it's like, it's just there's too many. There's too many cars. It's not fitting. Like it was a great idea. Like, we all love our cars. I love a good road trip. But it doesn't fit when we have more people. I mean, how many, like, there's 8 billion people in the world now. We can't all drive cars. like
Right.
It just doesn't work. And we need to look to other places and other ways of getting around. Both for our own enjoyment, like just enjoyment of life, for our fitness, for our sustainability, environmentally. There's so many reasons to do it. So, you know, hanging on to old habits forever is not a reason to stay this way forever.
And in terms of the changing climate and the challenges it's providing, how can the city address that? Have we talked about it basically through transportation? Are there other pieces that the council should be looking at in terms of being proactive rather than reactive?
Mm-hmm. Oh, we have a really good plan for climate called Halifax. So that is it's won awards and stuff. It's well respected. So I'm just interested in digging into it more. I have a little bit of a background in green building techniques through my work at NSCC. So like, what can we do with buildings? Is there anything more we can be doing? I know that the building code is a provincial thing, but is there anything we can be doing to encourage beyond code building, which would mean like, I don't know if you've heard of passive house. It's like a way of designing so your buildings are super tight and they don't need much energy. So you actually have to have smaller mechanical systems to heat them because they're so well insulated and whatnot. So that kind of thing is beyond what our building code says now, but are those things, anything like that we can encourage, or green roofs, or different green building materials, timber frame construction, or mass timber, I think it's mass timber construction, just more sustainable instead of, like, concrete is cement, is very high for CO2 production. So using different materials. So like I say, a lot of that's provincial, but what is there anything we can do for city bylaws or guidelines to encourage a more sustainable building and energy efficiency? Yeah.
Great. Thank you. In this process of running for office and talking to people and knocking on doors, you spend a lot of time doing this. What have you learned from this process? Tell me, what's a takeaway or two in terms of before you did it and now talking with all these people? How has it changed you? What have you learned? Is it opened, or is it just reinforced what you already know? Probably all of the above, but...
No, I think the coolest thing I found is kind of like encountering someone that initially you're like, oh, we have nothing in common. This could be bad. But then, like, the longer you talk about whatever their issue is, and you really kind of get to understand why they hold that opinion, like what things have happened to them or what's happening for them, and why this thing means so much to them and they're so upset about it. Like, it just feels, like we are just kind of all the same. Right? Like, we come from lots of different backgrounds, lots of different experiences, but we all just want to be treated fairly and be respected. And, like, it all comes down to that, I guess.
And if there's open lines of communication and respect, you're going to end up in a better place. Being a citizen of that big place, the south of us, it's very frustrating to see the state of political discourse.
And I am doing this so I can ignore that. Oh,
nice,
my gosh.
Nice. In terms of issues, is there anything that we need to mention here that we haven't in terms of things you want to address? We can't talk about everything here, but I'm looking at my list of things.
I guess we didn't. One of my pillar things is financial sustainability.
Okay.
So we talked about transportation and housing and public spaces. So
budget, financial sustainability.
Yeah.
Tell me, what about that piece?
So that,
where do you go with that?
It ties into the housing and the climate, in my mind, because of like how we develop. Like, are we going to keep developing and sprawling out where we have more roads and more infrastructure to maintain forever and ever, like just getting more and more and more, and then those are all expensive, and have we planned, like when we're doing the development, have we taken in enough money to sustain it over time? So really looking at, when we're talking about all those regional and suburban plans, like thinking how we develop, is that going to be something we can afford to maintain? And if we live close together, we have a higher tax base closer together, so we can have nicer things within those areas.
Right.
Yeah. So looking at that.
So, for example, the situation with the HRM, the suburbs pay taxes, but it sounds as though the city of Halifax is challenged because the taxes that they're getting from the suburbs doesn't quite reach the level of all the services that need to be provided. Do I have that right?
Yeah, the more dense places are subsidizing the more spread out places.
So that's the piece with density. If there's more density in these areas, it's going to help pay for these services that the city is providing. Yeah. Right.
Yeah, and it's tough because people feel like, I live out here and I don't have the rec center I want. But it's just the finances don't make sense to be able to have all those things right now. So the more we're able to live in our complete communities closer together, the more services we can pay for. Yeah. So another thing I want to look at there is, like, we're very high property taxes are like our biggest revenue stream, and I'd like to find out more about what other streams. I know there's rules on what we can do and what we can't do, but ask some more questions there and find out what we can be doing. Like looking at bylaw enforcement, a lot of things don't seem to be enforced. Okay, well, what if we enforce them and then the fines would pay for the people who do the enforcement? And just are there revenue streams we're missing out on?
And so, such as, and I know you're developing an understanding for these,
Yeah.
but so instead of property taxes, such as what, fees involving building new buildings and owning properties, this sort of thing. I mean, what would be what would be some alternatives to raising money through property tax?
Yeah, so I guess what I was thinking there was about the bylaws. We just, like, when there are fines for certain things that when a rule is broken, but no, they're not being enforced. So we're not getting those fines, or all the fines high enough.
I see.
Like, who was I talking to about? Oh yeah, that was about student parties. We'll see. I'll dig more into that. But so there's some bylaws in other places that go beyond a noise bylaw, like a really hard-hitting kind of public disturbance bylaw for having a major party, and it came with like a $10,000 fine. Like, looking into things like that that will help us with some issues we're having, but also bring in some money to be able to do some things.
I see. From what I've heard, it sounds like this year was much better than last year for the homecoming party at Dow. Last year was quite a debacle, and it seems that there were less issues this year.
I had met with Vice Provost Student Affairs, I believe, at Dow.
Yes.
Got just to start that relationship and talk about it, and been talking to some neighbors about it. So there's been a lot of really good work done by community members trying to build those relationships between Halifax Police and Dow and the neighbors and council to get those under control and build better relationships between students and homeowners in the area. Yeah.
So again, the communication piece sounds like it's crucial.
Yeah. And they've made strides, and it's coming along. And this bylaw that I was talking about was maybe a next step. Yeah.
Nice. Thank you. We're getting close to the end of our discussion here. What about the issue of policing and police reform? Do you have thoughts on that, on where it is or where it might go?
Yeah. Again, all of these reports are overwhelming, and they haven't read them all. But yeah, I mean, we've seen police violence in other places and here as well, I believe. I'm not thinking of any specific examples, but we just have to consider, when is it appropriate? We definitely need police, and we want police played a big role in making sure these homecoming parties didn't get out of control.
Right.
We need some more police presence on Spring Garden Road, I believe. I'm hearing that a ton.
I see.
But police who don't need to be involved in every situation. So we hear about, like, if it's a mental health wellness check, you don't need someone trained in violence to respond to that. You need someone trained in social services and healthcare. So really looking at all the things that traditionally police have done and seeing which ones make sense for police to do and which don't. And that's all laid out by people that know much more than me in a few reports, right? So we can learn from those reports and continually try to go better. And I've also, actually, one thing I have read cover to cover is there's a public safety plan 2023 to 2026, and it's making strides in that area, like really involving communities. And
nice.
Yeah.
So with the increasing challenges that the community faces, make sure that the police have the responsibility to do the jobs that they're trained and fit for, and these other pieces, make sure that the right people are facing those.
That's right.
Yeah. Great, thank you. Finally, can you share with us? You probably haven't had. Well, I shouldn't assume anything, but I don't know if you've had time to do any reading or watch anything on the big screen or small screen. But anything that you've read or seen recently that you really liked, whether it's a book or a TV show or a movie, just something that.
Goodness.
Yeah.
I forgot I was going to bring my stack of books that I'm reading, but they're not mostly for fun. They're mostly for. Is that what you're asking? Something fun?
Yeah, just something that you enjoyed.
Well,
I'm
enjoying watching Young Sheldon with my kids right now. Sometimes.
Okay.
The episodes are 18 minutes, so sometimes we can squeeze one in.
Is that still going on? They're still producing new shows?
I don't know. It's on Netflix.
Oh, it is. Young Sheldon. Yeah. Good stuff.
Yeah.
Okay, well, Laura, well, thank you for putting up with my sometimes questions all over the place, but I enjoyed this discussion. Thank you very much, and good luck.
You're welcome. Can I add a little bit here?
Of course. Of course.
Plugging myself has not been a natural thing, but I would like to have the opportunity if I can.
Take it away.
As I am running for council and just
yes, please.
Starting out this process, I wouldn't have come out and said, I'm the best candidate, because I didn't know all the other candidates, and I've gotten to know them, and I know myself, and I know why I'm doing this, and I just wanted to express to people that I'm really excited about this job. I really do think I'm the best candidate for this job. I've been thinking about doing it for more than 6 years, and I think I bring those engineering skills we talked about. I don't know if we talked about the volunteering. Like, I've been volunteering on councils for like 15 years.
No, you haven't mentioned that. Give us an example of your volunteer work.
Well, I started on the daycare board with my oldest child, I guess, and leading up to, I was 7 years with the Midwifery Regulatory Council, and I'm with the Engineers Nova Scotia now. So I really like the type of work of learning, like reading all these massive documents and making decisions. So yeah, I just feel like I've got the skills, I've got the interest in the type of work, and I've got good policy on some of these big issues we're facing, like the climate crisis in particular, which motivates me. So mobility issues, the smart growth we've talked about, and I really do enjoy helping people one-on-one too. Like there's been a lot of people going door to door. I'm like, and I can't do it all myself, but I've definitely, where I can, I've been trying to help people out when I learn about their struggles. So I think I'm the best candidate running here, and I hope that voters decide that as well.
Yes. So what we need is for everyone that is registered to go out and vote.
Yes. A higher voter turnout would also feel like a win.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Okay, Laura. Well, again, thank you very much, and good luck.
Thanks so much, Chris.